1964, Warner Brothers Studios, Burbank, California. Audrey Hepburn walks onto the My Fair Lady set for the first time. She's 35 years old. She's already won an Oscar. She's already conquered Hollywood. She's Breakfast at Tiffany's. She's Roman Holiday. She's Sabrina. She's everything. This should be her dream role. Eliza Doolittle. The flower girl who becomes a lady. The transformation story. It's perfect for her. She's thrilled. She's prepared. She's ready. What she doesn't know yet is that the next 6 months will be hell. Because Rex Harrison is already there, waiting. Let me tell you what really happened on the My Fair Lady set, the story they didn't want you to know, the torture that happened behind one of cinema's most beloved films. This is the dark truth about Rex Harrison and Audrey Hepburn. Rex Harrison was 56 years old when My Fair Lady started filming. He'd already played Henry Higgins on Broadway for 3 years. He owned the role, he knew it, and he knew the studio needed him. That power went straight to his head. But here's what you need to understand about Rex Harrison first. This wasn't new behavior. This was a pattern. His first wife, Colette Thomas, divorced him in 1942. Her reason in the divorce papers: mental cruelty. She described years of verbal abuse, constant criticism, deliberate humiliation in front of friends. His second wife, Lily Palmer, stayed married to him for 12 years. She wrote in her autobiography about his need to dominate and destroy the women in his life. His third wife, Kay Kendall, died of leukemia in 1959. Her friends later revealed that Rex knew about her diagnosis before they married and never told her. He let her die thinking she had anemia, controlled the information, controlled her reality. His fourth wife, Rachel Roberts, would commit suicide in 1980. She left behind a diary describing Rex's psychological abuse during their marriage. "He makes me feel like I'm nothing," she wrote. "Like I don't exist unless he acknowledges me." This is who Audrey Hepburn was about to work with for 6 months. A man with a documented history of destroying women. The first week of filming, Audrey introduced herself politely. Professional, warm, the way she always was. She'd brought a small gift for him, a first day of filming tradition she had, a vintage book of George Bernard Shaw's plays, Pygmalion included. She handed it to him with a genuine smile. "I'm so honored to work with you, Rex. I've admired your stage performance for years." Rex took the book, looked at it, looked at her. "I don't need gifts from people who stole roles from their rightful owners." He handed the book back, walked away. Audrey stood there, holding the book, stunned. The crew nearby pretended they hadn't heard. She quietly put the book back in her dressing room, never mentioned it again. That was day 1. Rex barely looked at her. He'd wanted Julie Andrews, the actress who originated the role on Broadway. He'd fought against Audrey's casting, lost the fight, and he never forgave her for it. From day 1, he made sure she knew it. The cruelty started small. Rex would arrive late to set. Audrey would be ready, in costume, in makeup, waiting. He'd show up an hour late. No apology, no acknowledgement. When they rehearsed scenes, he refused to look at her during the dialogue. He'd stare at the wall, at the floor, at anything but her eyes. Director George Cukor noticed immediately. "Rex, you need to look at Audrey during this scene." Rex's response: "I don't need to look at her to know my lines." Audrey said nothing. She just adjusted. She tried harder. Then the real abuse started. Rex Harrison had one rule on set. He only did one take. That's it. One. He was too important, too experienced, too brilliant to need multiple takes. But here's what he did to Audrey. He would deliberately mess up her takes. Wait until Audrey was halfway through her dialogue, hitting every emotion perfectly, and then he'd cough, or move suddenly, or look away, ruining the take. Cukor would have to cut. Let's go again. Audrey would reset. Try again. Pour her heart into it. Rex would do it again. Different method. Same result. Ruin her take, over and over and over. Stanley Holloway, who played Alfred Doolittle, Eliza's father, watched this happen repeatedly. He later told friends, "Rex was systematically breaking that poor girl down. We all saw it. None of us could stop it." Wilfred Hydewhite, who played Colonel Pickering, tried to intervene once. "Rex, old boy, perhaps we could help Audrey by..." Rex cut him off. "Perhaps you could help by minding your own business." The message was clear. No one interferes. One scene took 53 takes, 53. Not because Audrey was struggling, because Rex kept sabotaging her. It was the scene where Eliza practices her vowels. The rain in Spain stays mainly in the plain. If you want more untold stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. Your support means everything to us. She recorded all the songs, gave everything. Then, 3 months into filming, the studio made a decision without telling her. They hired Marni Nixon to dub her voice. Marni Nixon was Hollywood's secret weapon. She dubbed Natalie Wood in West Side Story, Deborah Kerr in The King and I. She was the invisible voice behind Hollywood's non-singing stars. But nobody told Audrey. She kept recording, kept trying, kept thinking her voice would be used. Meanwhile, Marni Nixon was in another studio, recording the exact same songs. Audrey found out by accident. She overheard 2 producers talking in the hallway outside the soundstage. Marnie's doing great with the dubbing. Audrey will never know. What about the premiere? Won't she hear it's not her voice? We'll tell her we mixed her voice with Marnie's for technical reasons. She'll believe it. She stood there frozen. They'd been lying to her for weeks, making her record songs they were never going to use, making her think she was good enough when they'd already decided she wasn't. She confronted George Cukor privately in his office. "Why didn't you tell me?" His answer, "We didn't want to hurt you." Audrey's response quietly, "Not telling me hurt more." She asked him directly, "Did you ever intend to use my voice?" Cukor couldn't look at her. The studio felt Marnie's voice was more suitable for the range. When did the studio decide this? Before filming started. Before filming started. They'd lied to her from day one. Let her believe she had a chance. Let her work herself to exhaustion for nothing. She left Cukor's office, went to the parking lot, sat in her car for an hour. When she came back, her eyes were puffy. Everyone knew she'd been crying. No one said anything. But here's what made it worse. Rex Harrison knew about the dubbing before she did. The studio had told him, made sure he knew, because they needed him comfortable, and he used it against her. During the "I could have danced all night" scene, after she found out about the dubbing, Rex made a comment between takes. Audrey was emotional during the scene. Eliza is supposed to be joyful, in love, transcendent. But Audrey was thinking about the fact that the voice singing those words wouldn't be hers. Rex noticed her struggling. He walked over during a lighting setup, stood close enough that only she and a few nearby crew members could hear. Well, at least they can't dub your acting. Oh wait, they probably would if they could. The script supervisor gasped. The gaffer turned away. Audrey's face went completely still. She didn't respond, didn't react, just stood there. Rex smiled, walked away. The crew member closest to her, a young production assistant named Margaret, later wrote about that moment. I watched Audrey Hepburn's face that day. She didn't cry. She didn't get angry. She just disappeared. Like she went somewhere inside herself where he couldn't reach her. It was the saddest thing I've ever seen. When they resumed filming, Audrey delivered the scene flawlessly. With joy, with love, with transcendence. All while Rex Harrison smirked in the background. The crew gasped. Cecil Beaton, the costume designer, later wrote in his diary, "Rex is unspeakably cruel to that poor girl." Audrey handled it the only way she knew how. Grace, silence, professionalism. But every night she went home to Mel Ferrer and broke down. Their marriage was already struggling. Mel's controlling behavior, his jealousy of her success, his own failed acting career making him bitter. But during My Fair Lady, Mel actually saw what was happening to her. "I dread going to set," she told him one night in October. "Every morning I wake up and my stomach hurts because I know I have to see him." Mel, in his rare moments of actual support, told her, "You're better than him. You're better than all of them. Don't let him see you break." So she didn't. Not publicly. But privately, she was falling apart. Her son, Sean, who was 4 years old, noticed. Kids always notice. "Mommy, why are you sad?" "I'm not sad, darling. Mommy's just tired. You cry at night, I hear you." She held him close, realized she wasn't hiding it as well as she thought. The rain in Spain scene is famous. It's joyful, it's celebratory. Eliza finally gets the accent right, and everyone's happy. Behind the scenes, it took 17 hours to film. 17 hours of forced joy, forced celebration, forced chemistry with a man who despised her. Why? Because Rex insisted every element be perfect. The piano timing, the choreography, the lighting. He made them do it over and over, but only for his coverage. When it was Audrey's close-up shots, he'd leave the set. "I'm not needed for her close-ups. She can do those alone." So Audrey performed her joyful, triumphant scene to an empty mark. No scene partner, no energy to play off, just a piece of tape on the floor where Rex should have been. Stanley Holloway stayed. Wilfred Hyde-White stayed. They tried to help her, but without Rex, the scene felt hollow. She smiled through it, made it work, made it magical. That's the genius no one talks about. Audrey created chemistry with a man who gave her nothing. She made you believe Eliza loved Higgins when Rex Harrison gave her nothing but contempt. The Ascot scene was particularly brutal. Audrey had to wear a massive hat, restrictive corset, heavy gown. The costume weighed 35 pounds. It was 95 degrees on the soundstage because of the lights. She was exhausted. The corset was so tight she could barely breathe. Cecil Beaton had designed it for maximum period accuracy. It cinched her already tiny 22-inch waist down to 18 inches. Between takes, she'd have to loosen it just to get a full breath. During one take, she stumbled slightly. The weight of the costume, the heat, the restricted breathing, barely noticeable on camera. Rex stopped the scene, looked at George Cukor. Are we really going to accept that level of amateurism on a Warner Brothers production? Audrey apologized immediately. I'm sorry, the costume is quite heavy. Let's go again. Rex turned to Cecil Beaton. Perhaps the costume wouldn't seem so heavy if she had more substantial meals. It was a dig at her weight, at her figure, at her eating habits. Cecil, usually diplomatic, couldn't stay silent. The costume is heavy, Rex. Perhaps you'd like to try wearing one. Rex glared at him. Perhaps you'd like to focus on your job instead of defending mediocrity. They did the scene again. Audrey was perfect. Rex found something else to criticize. Her posture, her hand placement, her timing. It was never good enough. Because it was never about the performance. It was about breaking her. And here's the thing. It was working. By month 4 of filming, Audrey had lost 12 pounds. She was already thin. The stress made her skeletal. Her weight dropped from 110 pounds to 98 pounds. On her 5 feet 7 inches frame, it was dangerous. Wardrobe had to keep taking in her costumes. Every week, alterations. The studio doctor examined her, found her blood pressure too low, her resting heart rate too high. Signs of extreme stress. He recommended she take a week off. The studio refused. They were already over budget, over schedule. They needed to finish. So Audrey kept working. She developed insomnia, couldn't sleep, would lie awake replaying every mistake, every criticism, every moment of humiliation. She started taking sleeping pills. First 1, then 2, then 3. Her assistant Gisela would find her in the morning, groggy, barely coherent, struggling to wake up. But she'd shower, do her makeup, get to set on time, always professional. She started smoking more. She was already a heavy smoker, but the stress made it worse. 3 packs a day, just to cope. Between takes, she'd go to her dressing room and chain smoke. 4, 5 cigarettes in a row, trying to calm her nerves. The studio publicist tried to stop her from smoking on set. Miss Hepburn, we can't have photos of you smoking. It's not good for your image. Audrey, normally accommodating, snapped. Then don't take photos. It was the only time anyone heard her lose her composure publicly. Her assistant, Gisela, watched her deteriorate and couldn't do anything. Miss Hepburn was the strongest woman I knew, Gisela said years later in an interview. But Rex Harrison broke something in her during that film, something that never quite healed. The emotional turning point came during the I've grown accustomed to her face scene. It's Higgins's big moment. He realizes he loves Eliza. It's supposed to be tender, vulnerable. The hardened misogynist finally admitting he needs someone. Rex performed it beautifully, for the camera, for the crew, for himself. It was genuinely moving. Everyone on set teared up. But between takes, when Audrey tried to talk to him about the emotional arc of the scene, about how Eliza might respond, he cut her off. I don't need acting advice from someone whose voice isn't even good enough for a musical. She didn't cry that time. She just nodded, walked away, sat in her chair. Stanley Holloway saw it happen. He went to George Cukor. George, you need to do something about Rex. This has gone too far. Cukor sighed. What do you want me to do, Stanley? Fire our leading man 4 months into production? No. I want you to protect your leading lady. Cukor looked at Audrey, sitting alone in her chair, looking small, looking defeated. She's handling it, he said. That's not the same as being okay, Stanley replied. But nothing changed. Cecil Beaton approached her during a costume fitting. Darling, are you all right? Audrey looked at him with the saddest smile. I'm fine. I'm always fine. But she wasn't, and Cecil knew it. He wrote in his diary that night, Audrey is not fine. She's dying inside. We're all watching it happen, and we're doing nothing. The final scene they filmed together was the ending. Eliza returns to Higgins after leaving him. Where the devil are my slippers? It's supposed to be ambiguous. Is it love? Is it submission? Is it Stockholm Syndrome? The audience debates it to this day. On set, there was no ambiguity. It was torture. They filmed it on the last day of Audrey's shooting schedule. She knew after this scene she'd never have to see Rex Harrison again. That knowledge got her through it. The scene required Eliza to look at Higgins with complex emotions. Audrey didn't have to act. She was looking at Rex Harrison with every complex emotion she'd been suppressing for 6 months. Love? No. Resignation? Yes. Defeat? Maybe. Survival? Absolutely. George Cukor called cut for the final time. That's a wrap for Audrey Hepburn. The crew applauded. Spontaneous, genuine, supportive. Audrey smiled, thanked everyone, hugged Stanley Holloway, hugged Wilfred Hyde White, hugged Cecil Beaton. Rex Harrison didn't say goodbye, didn't acknowledge her, just walked off set. Audrey watched him go. Someone asked her, "Aren't you going to say goodbye?" Her response, "I said goodbye to him months ago." She went to her dressing room, closed the door, and cried for an hour. Not tears of relief, tears of grief for what the experience could have been, for what it became instead. When she finally emerged, her eyes were clear, her face composed. She drove home to Mel and Sean, held her son, and decided never to speak about what happened. The premiere of My Fair Lady was October 21st, 1964, at the Criterion Theater in New York. It was spectacular. The reviews were incredible. The film was a phenomenon. Audrey and Rex had to do press together, smile together, pretend they were colleagues, friends even. In every interview, Audrey was gracious. Rex is a brilliant actor. It was an honor to work with him. Rex, when asked about Audrey, she was adequate for the role. Adequate, not talented, not wonderful, not even good. Adequate. The interviewer pressed, "Just adequate? She's Audrey Hepburn." Rex, "Yes, well, Audrey Hepburn is a movie star. I'm an actor. There's a difference." The condescension dripped from every word. Audrey, sitting next to him during joint interviews, would smile, nod, say nothing. But photographers caught moments between the smiles, moments where her face fell, where the hurt showed. Those photos never made it to publication. The studio controlled the narrative. The Academy Awards ceremony, April 5th, 1965. My Fair Lady won 8 Oscars: Best Picture, Best Director, Best Cinematography, Best Costume Design, Best Sound, Best Art Direction, Best Music Score, and Best Actor for Rex Harrison. Audrey wasn't even nominated. The Academy didn't nominate her for Best Actress. Julie Andrews won for Mary Poppins instead. It was seen as the Academy's way of apologizing for not casting Julie in My Fair Lady. The irony was devastating. Audrey lost the Oscar to the woman she replaced, for a role she was tortured for. Rex Harrison won his Oscar, gave his acceptance speech, thanked George Cukor, thanked Jack Warner, thanked Warner Brothers, thanked Cecil Beaton, thanked the Academy. Never mentioned Audrey, not once. She sat in the audience, smiling, applauding. The cameras constantly on her face, looking for any sign of bitterness, jealousy, hurt. There was none. She was too professional for that. She applauded when he won, smiled when the camera found her, maintained perfect composure. But people who knew her well saw it. The hurt in her eyes, the forced smile, the way her hands gripped her clutch just a little too tight. Shirley MacLaine, sitting near her, later said, "I watched Audrey that night. She was gracious, but I could see her heart breaking." After the ceremony, there was the governor's ball. Rex was celebrating, surrounded by admirers, holding his Oscar. Audrey attended briefly, then left early. She told Mel in the car, "I never want to do a musical again. I never want to work with someone like that again. I never want to feel like this again." And she didn't. My Fair Lady was her last musical. She became even more selective about roles, more protective of herself. She turned down Hello, Dolly, turned down Mame, turned down every musical offered. "No more singing," she told her agent. "No more musicals. I'm done." The experience changed her. It made her more guarded, more cautious, more aware that even at her level of fame, she could still be victimized. She started seeing a therapist, talked about the anxiety, the insomnia, the weight loss. The therapist asked, "Why didn't you walk away?" Audrey's answer, "Because that's what he wanted. He wanted me to quit, to prove I wasn't strong enough. I couldn't give him that satisfaction. But the cost of that strength was immense." Rex Harrison, for his part, never expressed regret, never apologized. In his 1975 autobiography, Rex, he barely mentioned Audrey. These forgotten stories deserve to be told. If you think so too, subscribe and like this video. Thank you for keeping these memories alive. One paragraph, one single paragraph about working with her on My Fair Lady. Audrey Hepburn was a lovely girl, very professional. The film was successful. That's it, that's all he said. Decades of cruelty reduced to 3 sentences. When journalists asked him about the rumors of tension on set, he dismissed them. Audrey was sensitive. Some people are more sensitive than others. I'm a professional. I expect professionalism. Blaming her, making it her fault for being too sensitive. Gaslighting her even years later. When asked about her years later in a 1980 interview, he said, "She was a movie star. I was an actor. There's a difference." The interviewer pushed back. "What's the difference?" "Rex, movie stars are manufactured. Actors are made. Audrey was manufactured by the studio system. She was a product. I respect the craft." Dismissing her talent, her years of work, her dedication, reducing her to a product, the cruelty never ended. Audrey and Rex never spoke again after filming wrapped. They attended some of the same industry events over the years. Saw each other across rooms. She would smile politely. He would nod. Neither approached the other. At the 1974 American Film Institute tribute to Jack Warner, they were both in attendance. They were seated at tables near each other. The seating chart person probably didn't realize the history. Or maybe they did. Maybe they thought enough time had passed. It hadn't. Audrey and Rex made eye contact once during the evening. She nodded. He looked away. They didn't speak. After dinner, Audrey left early. Told her date she had a headache. The truth? She couldn't be in the same room with him. In 1990, Rex Harrison died of pancreatic cancer. He was 82. The news broke on June 2nd. Audrey was in Switzerland. Journalists called for comment. Her publicist said she was unavailable. Audrey didn't attend the funeral, didn't send flowers, didn't make a public statement. Her only comment, privately to a friend, "I hope he found peace." Even in death, she was more gracious to him than he ever was to her. But that night, alone in her home, she watched My Fair Lady for the first time in 26 years. She watched herself being tortured, watched herself smiling through it, watched herself creating magic with a man who hated her. And she cried, not for him, for herself, for the young woman who endured that pain and thought she had to. 3 years later, January 20th, 1993, Audrey died. At her funeral in Switzerland, people spoke about her kindness, her grace, her strength, her resilience, her humanitarian work, her love for her sons, her elegance, her beauty inside and out. No one mentioned Rex Harrison, but the people who worked on My Fair Lady, they knew. They remembered. Stanley Holloway, who died in 1982, told his family before he died, "The greatest acting I ever witnessed wasn't in the film. It was watching Audrey Hepburn pretend to be okay." Cecil Beaton, who died in 1980, left his My Fair Lady diaries to a museum. The entries about Rex's cruelty were preserved, evidence of what really happened. Marni Nixon, who dubbed Audrey's voice, gave an interview in 2013. "I felt terrible about it," she said. "I was just doing a job. But I knew what it meant to Audrey. I knew she'd worked so hard. I knew the dubbing hurt her. And I knew Rex used it against her. I wish I'd refused the job." The crew members who are still alive remember. They remember how she showed up every day with a smile even when he made her cry the night before. They remember how she never complained, never fought back, never stooped to his level. They remember how she took every cruel comment, every deliberate sabotage, every humiliation, and still delivered one of the most iconic performances in cinema history. That's the real story of My Fair Lady. Not the fairy tale transformation of Eliza Doolittle, but the real-life endurance of Audrey Hepburn. A woman who was tortured on set for 6 months by a man who resented her existence. A woman who smiled through it. A woman who never let them see her break. A woman who created movie magic while dying inside. When you watch My Fair Lady now, knowing this, it hits different. Every smile Eliza gives Higgins, you know Audrey was forcing herself to smile at a man who despised her. Every moment of vulnerability, you know she was genuinely vulnerable, genuinely hurt. Every scene where Eliza endures Higgins's cruelty, you know Audrey was enduring actual cruelty. Every time Eliza tries to please Higgins and fails, you know Audrey was experiencing that same impossible standard. Every time Higgins dismisses Eliza, you know Rex was doing the same to Audrey. The performance isn't acting, it's survival. And that's what makes it devastating. The film asks, can Eliza transform into a lady? The real question was, can Audrey survive Rex Harrison? She did. Barely. Rex Harrison won the Oscar, got the glory, got the praise, got to be remembered as the definitive Henry Higgins. Audrey Hepburn got the trauma, got the betrayal, got the humiliation, got the pain, and the knowledge that she survived something most people would have walked away from. But she didn't walk away. She stayed. She finished. She delivered. Because that's who Audrey Hepburn was. Professional to the end, graceful to the end, stronger than anyone gave her credit for, stronger than Rex Harrison ever was. Because true strength isn't cruelty, it's enduring cruelty and remaining kind. Rex Harrison tortured her on set for months, made her cry daily, and she smiled through it. That's not just acting, that's heroism. That's Audrey Hepburn. This is Audrey Hepburn. The hidden truth. From wartime horrors to Hollywood secrets, we uncover what they've been hiding for decades. Subscribe to discover the dark truth behind the elegant image.